All right, so today we're diving into a real classic,
Hmm.
Romancing the Stone from 1984.
Oh, yeah.
The one where Kathleen Turner trades her typewriter for a treasure map.
Right.
I've got a whole stack of articles and notes here that you sent over, so
Yeah.
let's unpack this movie and see why it works.
What's really cool about this one
Yeah,
is it's not just like a, popcorn flick.
right.
Like on the surface, you've got this Indiana Jones meets
Mm-hmm.
like Romancing the Shake kind of vibe,
Sure.
but there's actually some depth to how it plays with these different genre conventions.
So we've got action, we've got comedy, we've got romance.
Right.
Is it trying to do too much, or is that kind of the secret sauce here?
It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
but I think that's where the magic comes in.
Okay.
The film is very self-aware.
Uh-huh.
It knows that it's playing with familiar tropes,
Right.
but it's doing it with a wink and a nod.
Okay.
Like, take Joan Wilder, for example.
Yeah, she's not your typical damsel in distress.
Exactly.
She's this successful romance novelist,
Right.
and all of a sudden she's thrown into
Yes.
a plot straight out of one of her own books.
Exactly. And it's not just about,
Yeah.
her being thrown into this dangerous situation.
Right.
The film actually uses her writing background
Okay.
to inform all of her actions.
I like that.
The way she kind of analyzes situations and anticipates dangers,
Mm-hmm.
and even the way she uses her words to manipulate people.
Oh, interesting.
It's all drawn from her experience as a storyteller.
So basically the movie's saying that
Yes.
writing a good romance novel is like survival training.
Well, I think there's definitely a connection there
Okay.
between, the power of narrative
Uh-huh.
and the power that she discovers within herself.
I see.
It makes you wonder if the film is making a statement about,
Yeah.
the skills of romance writers.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have Jack Colton,
Yeah.
our rugged leading man.
Right.
He seems like the classic action hero archetype.
Yeah.
Brave and resourceful,
Yeah.
a little roguish.
Huh.
But there's got to be more to him than just muscles and a tan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
What I think is really interesting about him
Yeah.
is his vulnerability.
Okay.
Like, he's got this, tough exterior,
Right.
but he's not afraid to show a softer side,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to Joan.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that scene with the baby monkey?
Oh, yeah.
He just melts.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's a perfect example of how this movie plays with expectations.
Yeah.
You've got this, seasoned adventurer who's suddenly like a total softie.
Right.
It's funny, it's endearing,
Mm-hmm.
and it totally flips the script on that, emotionless action hero stereotype.
Exactly. And it adds a whole layer of
Yeah.
depth to his character.
Yeah.
Makes him much more relatable.
Yeah.
And plus, Michael Douglas at 40 years old doing almost all of his own stunts.
Wow.
Like, that adds another level of, authenticity to the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously you can't have a movie called Romancing the Stone
Right.
without some serious chemistry.
Of course.
So how does the film handle the romance between Joan and Jack?
Well, one of the things that really works
Yeah.
is that their relationship isn't rushed at all.
Okay.
Like, it builds very naturally throughout their adventure.
Uh-huh.
They start off, bickering,
Yeah.
almost antagonistic.
Right.
But as they start to rely on each other to survive,
Mm-hmm.
this genuine connection emerges.
So their personalities clash at first,
Yeah.
but it's that whole opposites attract thing.
Right.
She's cautious and methodical.
Mhm.
He's more impulsive and reckless.
Sure.
They challenge each other,
Yeah.
but in a way that feels playful.
Right.
And ultimately, it leads to both of them growing.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's not just about romantic tension.
Right.
It's about how their differences actually complement each other.
I see.
Joan learns to be more adventurous,
Mhm.
and Jack learns to appreciate a more measured approach.
And let's not forget the villains in this movie,
Oh, yeah.
Zolo and his gang.
Right.
They're more quirky than menacing, aren't they?
Totally.
Yeah.
They're definitely obstacles for Joan and Jack,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not like, your typical over-the-top villains that you
Right.
see in a lot of action-adventure movies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost comic relief at times,
Uh-huh.
which adds to this lighthearted tone of the whole film.
It's like they're in on the joke.
Right.
They don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah,
Which makes them way more entertaining to watch.
exactly.
Yeah.
Their presence doesn't overshadow the romance or the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely add a layer of fun and unpredictability.
For sure. And speaking of fun and unpredictability,
Oh, yeah.
we can't forget about Danny DeVito as Ralph.
Oh, he's fantastic.
I mean, he steals every scene he's in.
He really does.
It's just that perfect mix of sleazy and charming.
You're right.
You never know whether to trust him.
Mm.
But he's so entertaining
Yeah.
that you can't help but root for him a little bit.
You got to love him.
But he's not just there for comic relief.
Right.
He's a pretty important part of the plot.
Right.
He helps Joan and Jack navigate this whole, Colombian landscape.
Exactly.
He gives them information, resources, even a few double crosses along the way.
Keeps things interesting.
Oh, for sure. He adds a level of chaos that keeps you guessing.
Definitely.
Now, before we jump into the next part, I gotta share some behind-the-scenes trivia I found.
Oh, I love trivia.
So did you know this whole thing was inspired by Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
You can totally see the influence
Yeah.
in that blend of action and adventure and humor.
Right. It's like they took the Raiders formula and
Nah.
just injected it with a big dose of romance.
Yeah, I love it.
And speaking of romance,
Okay.
Kathleen Turner was not the first choice for Joan Wilder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually offered the role to Shelley Long first.
Wow. I can't even imagine.
I know.
I mean, Kathleen Turner really embodies that character's transformation so well.
All right.
It's hard to picture anyone else doing it.
Yeah,
That blend of, vulnerability and strength.
totally. And here's one more.
Okay.
Remember all those lush jungle scenes?
Oh, yeah?
They weren't actually filmed in Colombia.
No way. Where were they?
Mexico.
Wow.
The filmmakers recreated the Colombian jungle using different locations in Mexico.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it just shows you that, with a little creativity and some resourcefulness,
Right.
you can do a lot, even on a tight budget.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the characters,
Mm-hmm.
the humor, the behind-the-scenes stuff, but
Yeah.
what about the film's legacy?
Oh, that's interesting.
How has Romancing the Stone influenced the action-adventure comedy genre?
That is a great question,
Yeah.
and one that we will dive into right after this.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the legacy of Romancing the Stone.
Right. Like, it seems like so many movies tried to kind of capture that same magic.
Mm-hmm.
After it came out, was anyone successful, or is this film one of a kind?
I mean, it's a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
The film set a high bar
Uh-huh.
with that blend of humor and heart and thrills,
Yeah.
and I think, crucially, it never felt formulaic.
Right. It's got those influences like Raiders,
Right.
but it still feels fresh and original.
Yeah.
There's just something about that chemistry between Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Their banter is so natural, and the way their connection evolves feels very earned. They genuinely seem to enjoy each other's company,
Right.
even when they're, bickering
Yeah.
or in the middle of some crazy chase scene.
Yeah, and it's not just the two leads either. The
Right.
supporting cast is great, especially Danny DeVito.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah, that mix of sleaziness and charm,
Right?
you never know if you should trust him,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
so entertaining.
It's exactly.
You can't help but root for him just a little.
It makes me wonder if they could even make this movie today.
Hmm.
Like, do you think modern audiences would connect with it in the same way?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the core elements that made it a hit are timeless.
Okay.
Compelling characters, a little romance, a sprinkle of humor,
Uh-huh.
and of course, a thrilling adventure.
Sure.
But the execution is key.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Romancing the Stone walks this fine line
Okay.
between being self-aware and genuinely heartfelt.
Uh-huh.
It winks at the audience,
Yeah.
but it never gets cynical.
Right.
It delivers those action sequences
Yeah.
without, resorting to tons of CGI.
Okay.
It embraces romance,
Right.
but it's not overly saccharine.
So you're saying it's all about finding the right balance.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about trusting the story and the characters
Mm-hmm.
and letting the humor and the action come out organically
I see.
from their interactions. Too often, modern films rely on spectacle over substance.
Right.
They sacrifice character development and genuine emotion
Yeah.
for explosions and special effects.
Okay, so one thing that really struck me about this movie
Mm-hmm.
is the setting.
Yeah.
It takes place in this exotic, almost mythical place,
Uh-huh.
the Colombian jungle.
Right.
How important is setting to a film like this?
Oh, setting's crucial.
Okay.
It transports the audience to a different world.
Yeah.
And in this case, the jungle becomes like a character in itself.
Interesting.
full of danger and beauty.
Uh-huh.
It forces Joan out of her comfort zone
Right.
into a world where her imagination collides with reality.
It's like the jungle is a metaphor for the unknown.
Precisely.
Okay.
Joan and Jack aren't just navigating like physical obstacles, but also the uncharted territory of their own emotions
Right.
and their growing attraction to each other.
And they create this immersive world, even though,
Right.
like we said, they didn't even film in Colombia.
It's exactly.
They shot the jungle scenes in Mexico.
Yeah, it just goes to show you
Yep.
that with some creativity and resourcefulness, you can achieve a lot, even with a limited budget.
Right.
Sometimes limitations actually breed innovation.
I like that. So we've talked about the film's appeal, its influence on the genre.
Yeah.
But what's the takeaway for the listener today? Why should they care about a movie that came out 40 years ago?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think Romancing the Stone reminds us
Okay.
that sometimes the simplest stories are the most effective. It's a story about, ordinary people
Right.
thrust into these extraordinary circumstances,
Yeah.
finding love and adventure in unexpected places.
And it's a story that still resonates today.
Yeah.
We all crave adventure. We
Right.
yearn for connection. And, we all need a good laugh every now and then.
Absolutely.
Romancing the Stone offers all of that
Yeah.
in a package that's both entertaining and heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we least expect.
I love that.
And that even the most cynical among us
Mm-hmm.
might secretly crave a little romance and adventure.
Maybe just a little.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to hear your thoughts on, you were saying how even the most cynical among us might secretly want a little romance and adventure.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of why this movie has stayed so popular?
I think that's a big part of it.
Okay.
I mean, in a world that can feel
Yeah.
really complicated and overwhelming sometimes,
Right.
it's comforting to revisit a story that's both, thrilling and heartwarming.
It's like escaping into this world where the good guys win,
Right.
the scenery is amazing, and even the bad guys have a sense of humor.
Exactly. And don't forget,
Yeah.
this film came out in 1984
Right.
when there was this real sense of optimism.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a bit of nostalgia there, too.
Oh, interesting.
People longing for a simpler time when special effects weren't everything
Right.
and a good story was enough
Yeah.
to really captivate an audience.
Okay, so speaking of good stories,
Yeah,
this movie had a sequel,
it did.
The Jewel of the Nile.
Uh-huh.
Did it recapture the magic of the original?
Oh, that's a question that sparks a lot of debate
Okay.
among fans.
Uh-huh.
The Jewel of the Nile
Yeah.
definitely has its moments,
Okay.
and it uses that chemistry between Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner,
Right.
but it doesn't quite reach the same heights as the original.
What do you think is missing?
Well, I think the sequel falls into the trap of a lot of 80s sequels,
Okay.
prioritizing spectacle over substance.
Yeah.
The action is bigger, the stakes are higher,
Right.
but the story feels a bit formulaic,
I see.
and the characters don't really grow in the same way they do in Romancing the Stone.
So it's like they tried to just make everything bigger,
Exactly.
but they lost some of that heart
Right.
and charm that made the first one so special.
They did.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes less is more.
I like that.
The original Romancing the Stone
Yeah.
really nailed that balance
Oh,
of
yeah.
action, humor, romance, and character development.
Right.
That's a lesson that Hollywood seems to have forgotten these days.
Okay, so if we had to sum up the legacy of this film,
Yeah.
what would it be?
I think it reminds us of the power of a good story.
Okay.
It's a testament to strong characters,
Mm-hmm.
witty dialogue, and a genuine sense of fun.
Yeah.
It transports us to a different world,
Uh-huh.
makes us laugh,
Mm-hmm.
makes us swoon,
Right.
and ultimately leaves us feeling hopeful and entertained.
And maybe even inspired to have our own adventures.
I love that.
Yeah, even if they don't involve treasure maps and jungles.
Right, exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from the blend of genres to the film's impact.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay.
What makes a film truly timeless?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Is it the story, the characters, the themes,
Right.
or is it something else entirely?
That's a question worth pondering,
Yeah.
and one that doesn't have an easy answer.
Right.
Maybe it's a combination of all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Capturing a moment in time,
Yeah.
but also speaking to something universal within us.
Maybe that's the magic of movies like this.
Yeah.
They entertain us, they transport us,
Mm-hmm.
and they remind us of how powerful storytelling can be.
It's true.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Romancing the Stone.
It was my pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed it.